Whoops. Hey there. Okay, there we go. Let's get started here talking about today therapy, couples therapy with a narcissist. Good idea? Bad idea? What do you guys think? So let's just get going with this and talk about, well, what I think, which is it's generally speaking not the safest or best idea for your own well-being. Not going to save your marriage or relationship or your relationship with a parent or anything like that if they're a narcissistic person. And it can cause a lot of damage and harm to you and your own psyche and your own well-being. So let's talk about that. And I have my door open and there are birds chirping. So if you hear it, it's what it is. All right. Number one thing here, we're going to think about when you're entering into a therapeutic relationship is the equality of the relationship that needs to take place, the trust and the feeling of safety within the walls, so to speak, of the therapeutic relationship with a therapist and the person you're in therapy with. It has to be there. You don't have to trust that other person, but you have to trust that this space between the three people is safe. And the problem is narcissists are such incredible manipulators. They are such gifted and skilled and crafty manipulators, whether it be in the form of playing the victim, getting pity, admitting they're wrong when you know darn well they're not going to do anything to change it. It can be all kinds of things, all kinds of ways in which they manipulate. They can charm the pants off a therapist. Therapists are people too. They can be easily swayed by a narcissistic person just as anyone else can. Therapists who are in couples therapy are there to help couples. They're not there to diagnose your partner. Does that make sense? They're there to help couples come back together. Yes, of course, they see a lot of people who shouldn't be together, right? And they see a lot of people who are in abusive relationships or toxic relationships, so to speak, that they need to then say something to one or the other people often, but it's not their it's not what it's for, and it's not their specialty, right? They're there to help two people communicate. The problem with communicating with a narcissist, as we know, is that they're going to take everything you say and twist it around later on. You're going to be gaslit with the information you use that comes from the deepest and most vulnerable place in yourself that you're expressing in therapy. So I do not consider it a safe environment for anyone to step into unknowingly. So with all of this said, I'm going to say at the very end here that there are people who do benefit from it. So we'll talk about this first, because this is what we need to understand going into it. If it's going to be safe or beneficial or anything at all for you, you need to have all the info, right? Okay, so another thing that can happen here is your honesty that as I was just saying, your honesty that you are putting forth and you're bringing to the table here when you're in couples therapy is going to be used against you. In the same way, if you did it in private, it would be used against you, only worse, because you've done it in front of somebody else. You've made them feel whatever, like they're wrong, like you've shown a glimpse behind the mask to someone outside of the relationship by talking about it, by talking about your feelings, by talking about how you feel, but without even pointing blame, without even accusations. If you go into this in the most fair, so to speak, way with your language, you know what I mean? They're still going to turn it against you because you have let that other person see behind the narcissist mask. And they don't like that. They will punish. They will retaliate and find a way to get retribution for what you've done, for your lack of loyalty to them, for your letting other people see behind the mask. They don't like that. They don't want it. It's not, or they'll play victim, right? They'll play victim with, in so many ways. Okay, so say admit it. Say that you're there and they're like, yeah, I know I treat you this way. And then the therapist says, let's talk about your childhood to that person. Let's talk about what you grew up with. Let's talk about, and we know that many narcissistic people had very rough upbringings. They've had they've had rough times with people. A lot of them have had narcissistic parents. Not all of them, but some. Okay, let's assume this person has. And they start talking about it. Well, what does the session then become about? Listening and empathizing and attention giving and supply toward that narcissist. You're sitting there going, are they making excuses for how I'm being treated? Yeah, they both are. Not because the therapist is a bad person, but because they've been roped in without realizing often that what they're dealing with is someone with no empathy. There are a lot of therapists out there who believe anyone can change. Hate that that's a fact, but it is. And steer clear of those. Make sure you know what you're dealing with if you do go seek therapy, that they understand narcissism. Because it isn't just someone being selfish, right? We know what it is. We've lived through it, and we've seen the manipulation that's behind it. So, okay. Hey, you guys. Let's see. No, they don't change, and that comes to my next point. They don't change, guys. They don't change. They won't change. They can't change. Okay. They are so steeped in their own ego. They are so fixed on their delusion of what they need everything to be, of what they need to present themselves as for the world to think they are, that they don't even like to see behind the mask. Okay? They don't want to do all this work on themselves because there is nothing to change. They're superior to everyone else, right? They feel that they are, so they don't have empathy for you. They don't have empathy for the therapist sitting there. They don't have empathy for their children back at home. They don't have empathy. Okay. Their empathy can look like empathy if they're covert enough, where they say, oh, I know I hurt people. And, they can look like they're expressing empathy, but empathy without accountability, it's not even empathy. What words of empathy without accountability and action mean nothing. And a narcissist won't take accountability because they don't believe there's anything they need to change. What they need to learn to do is more covertly and deeply manipulate in their minds. Okay. And that's what they do. So what they're doing is they're gleaning information. They are basically grooming you all over again through, it's future faking. Therapy with a narcissist is future faking. Yeah, I'll change. I see the wrongs of my ways, or there's something really wrong in this relationship. We both need to learn to work together. Whatever it is they say to get you there, or whatever it is you're thinking to get them there, they aren't going to change. Okay. You cannot implant empathy into their brains. It isn't possible. What they can do is learn tools to speak to you as if they do have empathy. And to me, that is grosser than someone just not having empathy. I can't stand that personally. But there's people out there who think that that is helping relationships. I personally think it's keeping people in trauma-bonded relationships and not letting that person make a choice from the place of choice, but instead from the place of hope mixed with trauma bonding. So do you see what I'm saying? I don't personally think it is ever fixable. I think you can learn to live with it. If you're going to live with them and stay with them, you can learn to live with it by living your own life parallel to theirs within the same home. And that's about it. Otherwise, I think you are living on false hope to think that that person will ever love you the way you love. Okay. A narcissist can be enticed by reward, but there will be no real change. In other words, if it suits them and it will get them the supply they need, they can learn to jump through the right hoops for a certain amount of time. But guaranteed, as soon as they're tired of it, as soon as they feel like they've won, the mask is going to slip again and you're back to the massive devaluing. And there you go, same cycle. Has anyone experienced incessant talking? I called it the endless monologue. Yeah, I remember that. Okay. You get a therapist who exposes the narcissist in a session and then convinces all that narcissism isn't a bad thing. Here's the thing. Narcissism isn't a bad thing. We all have traits and a healthy level of narcissism, hopefully. Okay. Being a person with no empathy and NPD is not a good, healthy thing to be around. It is toxic person in a relationship because of the way they manipulate and the way they use people in relationships. So, yeah, sure, not a bad thing, but we're talking about toxic narcissism, not about narcissism itself, right? So, yeah, and a lot of therapists, like I'm saying, they can convince people to stay. I've heard it many times where people feel re-traumatized after therapy because of this, because they're sitting there in a state of cognitive dissonance then going, well, but the therapist is agreeing, so something's wrong with me. But then they go home and they're in the relationship and they're like, no, 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 no. What I heard in therapy is not what's happening here. What's happening here is out and out toxic toward me. And then, but the therapist said this, so it can make it worse for some people. What are we saying here? Hello, Sprinkle. Thank you. Mind endless silence that would kill me. And that's another thing they will do. They'll go to therapy, they'll sit, they'll talk, they'll do one of a few things. They'll either talk, play the victim, talk, act like they are engaged in being very charming and like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, or there's this one. They'll talk and it'll feel like it's couples back and forth. It'll feel like a normal couple session, so to speak. And then suddenly everybody's talking about what's wrong with you. And your anxiety, your fears, your feelings of having to walk on eggshells because of your past and your traumatized childhood. You're the codependent. Nothing's wrong with them. You just have codependency. And then the whole session becomes about therapizing the survivor. Been there. That is, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but it's ridiculous when you're in it. It is frustrating. And when you catch it and you're going, wait a minute, just because I'm the one willing to make change, does that mean I'm the one who has to make all the change? And in fact, I wouldn't have to make these changes if that other person wasn't doing those other things. Okay, so let's see. I can show zero sign of listening, and yet the talking continues. Yeah. Oh, 4 hours. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. He said, go to therapy. Then the next day, basically discarded. He moved into the new supplies as I wanted respect and change. Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, because you want something real, which, I mean, honestly, every relationship winds down at a certain point to where you're working on stuff together. You know what I mean? Like healthy relationships, stuff comes up. And sometimes you end up in situations where you're working through it with a therapist. Okay, no big deal, whatever. But a narcissist is going to go, wait, this is too much work. New supply over there, they don't see past the mask. So I can pretend to be someone completely different, play a role, have some fun until that person figures it out, and then move on after them to someone else. So it's too much work. It's a lot of work going to therapy on your own. Think about it. Think about the change that is required just to do something like, say, stop saying sorry all the time, or stop having people-pleasing tendencies, or stop to figure out why you feel like you're not enough. Okay, those are big deals, right? And those are really, like, that can take a lifetime of work for a person with empathy who's trying, for a person who really wants change. It can be hard. Now, imagine if you were like, well, I don't care what other people feel. I don't care what they think. I don't care about them. I only care what I get out of this. What am I going to get out of this? If the reward's not high enough, they're not going to try. They're not even going to work at it. And then that's basically what they do. So I think I skipped something, but let's keep going. A lot of times they won't even go to therapy. They will make promises to go, but then won't go, or they will go. I heard this one. I'll go, but I will only go to 3 sessions. And if after 3 sessions, things aren't fixed, then I'm out and you have to pay for the whole thing. That sounds good. Like a good deal. Yeah, let's do that. No, don't think so. So, yeah. It takes a decent amount of assessment to diagnose NPD, so the therapist can't make a quick diagnosis. Exactly, and it's not their job to do so in couples therapy. It's their job to help a couple learn to communicate, right? So that's the thing. Couples therapists aren't there to facilitate individual diagnosis. Sometimes it happens that they do give them Sometimes I had one flat out tell me, but see, they took me aside privately and told me, this is what you're dealing with. I think you might want to reconsider, right? Or you might want to consider your own place in this, right? And how this is affecting you, if this is what you want. Before we continue, right? And to me, that's a good therapist, because they're seeing something. They're saying, hey, I don't know. I mean, we can work, but I don't know what this is actually going to work toward. So let's figure it out and talk about it. So, but it's not their job to diagnose that person, because that's not what we're there for. We're there to learn to communicate with one another, right? So, okay. My situation was the exact opposite, but so accurate. Ex-wife was the covert narcissist. I was the sucker beta chump for 10 years. And yeah, and so here's another thing, and maybe you experienced this, Bill. A lot of times, and I want to say especially with female narcissists, but it's not always female narcissists, but often you will you'll go to therapy with them quite a lot, because they're the ones asking for it, because they like the attention. And especially if they are toxic borderline, they like the attention. They like the focus on them. They like the drama of having issues. They like it. Okay. So they'll go and they'll learn language. They'll learn language. They'll learn skills. They'll even learn things like nonviolent communication. They'll learn things like all the good stuff, that you put into relationships. They'll learn all the words. And then what they do is they gaslight you with them. They use it against you. And they use every ounce of psychological terminology they can find against you. And so the more they learn about your specifics in that, so in other words, if you have abandonment issues, I don't know why I did quotes. If you have real abandonment issues and you're talking about it from a deep place, saying this really hurts when they're disappearing all the time, because they don't call me, they don't text, they go silent, and I don't know what to do because it hurts. Ammunition. They will use that later on. So then you'll talk about what that means and what can be done about it. And then they'll learn terminology. They may even learn terminology for the things they do. Like if the person says, oh, so the therapist says, oh, so they go silent. So it's like a silent treatment, it feels like. Is that right? And you'll say, yeah, it does feel like the silent treatment. Like it really feels like it's punishment. And so the narcissist is sitting there thinking, okay. So then later, if you're crying so hard you can't talk, they'll say, why are you giving me the silent treatment? See, you're always doing that to me. That's why I shut down. That's why I can't talk to you. It's sick. Okay. So, and it's not a healthy thing to get involved with if you can avoid it. Let's see. What are we saying? They only go to therapy to act like they are doing something when they actually want to. All they do is manipulate therapists too. Exactly, Bonnie. Yep. Another thing that can happen, you want your 20K back from all those couple therapy. Well, hopefully you learned a lot about relationship. Hopefully, Bill, you learned a lot about your own style in relationship, in other words, you were on the uphill climb with the hardest type of relationship there is to have in your life. So hopefully you learned where you go in different directions and try and wiggle your way out of things. And hopefully in all of that, with all that money spent, you learned a little bit about yourself that you can now apply to healthy people in your life. Hopefully it's not all about the other person, right? Hey, is someone's birthday? Mine was yesterday, so happy birthday. Let's see. Okay, so another thing that can happen when you are, well, they won't go. That's what I said. And one of the reasons they won't go is because sometimes they're cornered or unmasked. If you unmask a therapist if you unmask a narcissist in a therapy session, you're going to have some kind of retribution. You're going to have pushback. You're going to have something. They're cornered. They're caught. They're standing there with the mask off in front of someone else. They don't do humility well, and they don't do humble, and they don't do accountability. So what do you got? You got a raging narcissist seething on the inside who's either going to react later, say things like, well, that therapist doesn't know what they're talking about. I won't go anymore. And it's often, and another things they do, is you you maybe start getting somewhere. Excuse me. You maybe start getting somewhere in therapy, right? It feels like you're getting somewhere. And then they'll pull back and they'll pull out. They'll pull away. They'll withhold anymore. Yep. So thank you. I will go to therapy, but only to the one you've been going to for a year. Only wanted to find out what I talked about behind his back. Yep. That's it. Let's see. What else are we saying here? Okay. Happy birthday to Jack Lumen. Let's see. Future faking. This is a fertile ground for the creation of further future faking. And that was a lot of as an alliteration, right? All right. It really is. It is a place of hope. So you're already in a situation where you have no hope. You're in this therapy. You're just hanging on to that last thread of hope. And this is a place where that narcissist can set you up for all kinds of future faking. In fact, just being there is future faking. It's saying we have a chance and you don't, right? You don't because they won't change. We have a chance. You can do whatever you want. You can stay in it as long as you want. But you don't have a chance at what you need from it, which is a healthy relationship. Okay. This is another one that, and I don't mean to be, harping on therapists here, because there's a lot of really good therapists and there's a lot of therapists who see this stuff. And I mean, I've heard of situations where they've seen it and they've taken that one person aside and said, you might want to go find a support group for toxic relationships, or you might want to go, like, they give advice. They can't do much within, they can do the therapy as a couples therapy is very different than individual therapy. And if you've been through it, it's really about the communication. It should be about the communication between the couple. And the therapist is the facilitator that helps that communication find new paths and new ways of speaking. It's awesome. It's awesome. I think everyone should do it as a healthy couple. Personally, once in a while, not because there's a problem, but because we all have damage, right? Especially if we're older. Whoa, something just fell over. Now I'm awake. Okay. So, what are we saying here? So anyway, that said, there are times when the therapist, because of the nature of the way couples therapy works, with the sort of back and forth dialogue of learning to have dialogue, where a lot of things are learned, such as I statements and both sides being equal. Sure, in a healthy relationship, that's the case. Both sides are equal and should be equally weighted, equally heard. Each person has their own feelings. Each person has their own experience. Two people, like when people say to me, like I just did a video about this the other day, that the narcissist, was it real? Because did they really feel what they said they feel? Well, I mean, every person in this world has their own unique experience of whatever it is they're going through at any given moment. And we can't look at our partner and enmesh so much that we're having the exact same experience. That's not empathizing. That is enmeshment. Okay. The difference in experience is what makes a relationship rich. With a narcissist, the berth is so wide that it is not a relationship, right? You can't relate to someone who can't have a relationship. They're just unrelatable if they don't have empathy. So with that said, both sides are not equal in this situation, because what you have here is a power play going on. You have a power dynamic within the relationship. It's never been equal and it'll never be equal. They always will be working to maintain power. They will always be working to maintain the control of the situation, the relationship, because they need things to fit their delusion of what they think the world is and means through them, right? Thank you. But anyway, you see what I'm saying? If the approach a therapist has is, now let's listen to them. Okay, survivor, go ahead and empathize. Let me hear you empathizing with your narcissistic partner, please. I mean, I don't say it like that, right? But I mean, and you're saying, well, I hear what you're saying, that you feel this. But inside you're going, you're gaslighting me right in front of someone. You're gaslighting me right in front of someone. And the therapist can't see it because they don't know the backstory. They don't know you. Right? So it isn't equal. And when you're being told in therapy to empathize more with someone who has no empathy, how is that healthy? It's not. Okay. What it'll get you is learning to manipulate them through using your empathy, but that's another story for another time. Okay. Let's see. Last thing here. Okay. The last thing here that I want to say is trauma bonds. Trauma bonds are not as widely understood, or they're not as widely talked about. I have yet to have someone come to me personally saying they went to couples therapy and their therapist said, it sounds like you're trauma bonded. Never, in fact, have I heard that. Not that I speak to bazillions of people, and I'm sure it happens, but it's not very common. And so that tells me it's not as widely, and I know just from speaking to people who have a hard time finding trauma-informed, narcissistic informed therapists, that it's difficult to find someone who understands trauma bonds. Understanding that it is trauma bonded. I actually had one. I got really lucky. It was so random that she said, and he wasn't even there. It was something for someone else, something else that was dealing with anxiety, duh, as we all had it, right? And she said, she says, you didn't say much about your relationship. Tell me about that part of your life. And so I told her really good stories, because you know how it isn't when we tell the good parts, because we don't realize we're in that fog, right? And she says, even from what you've said, while it doesn't sound that bad, what I'm hearing here is a classic codependent narcissistic relationship. I said, which one am I? And she just started giggling. And she goes, well, which one do you think you are? Who's the one bending over backwards? And I said, oh, and I didn't get it, right? I was like, codependent? What the heck, right? There it is. And she said, there's something called trauma bonds I think you should read up on. Now let's get to what we're here for, which is anxiety. So it was so brief and so quick, but it stuck with me. And it is what sparked my searching for what was wrong. So I'm thankful for her, and that was a therapist. But often we aren't so lucky, and our therapist doesn't understand it. And in couples therapy, I really wish there could be more training around that. And maybe there is, but I'm not seeing it or hearing it. So what I'm saying here is you got to be super careful. If you go into therapy with a narcissist, you have to be aware of all of this. I think it won't help you. It won't help the relationship. Okay. Couples therapy with a narcissist is not going to help your relationship. What it can do for some people is help them see the light. Help them see that this person won't change. Help them see. So sometimes it is beneficial because it can help a person say, you know what? I've tried everything and look at this. They can't even be honest in therapy. They are manipulating the therapist. If you're ready and willing to let go of this relationship, it can sometimes be the catalyst to get you out. For a lot of people, I see that. Okay. And then for a lot of people, it's the opposite. It gives them more hope, and they keep trying and they keep working, because it basically what's happening is you're getting hoovered in the session. All right. And we don't want that. So if you're able to see past the hoover, and you're able to see through the mask, and you're able to let it go and not try to argue and debate, if you can observe instead of engaging, then for some people, it helps them. Okay. So it's not always a bad thing. It's just not going to help the relationship. It's not going to fix the narcissistic manipulation that goes on in your life from the other person. Okay. So that's it for that. And anything you guys have, I'm going to go back and read a bit. And if you have any questions, or if I missed any, please retype it, because I am not the best at this. Okay. They were engaged over a year. When we split, I was asking him to help me with picking out a wedding date, and he was doing all the planning. He gave me an ultimatum. Ugh. Okay. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. This is the part that's hard because you just sit here quiet, staring and reading. Does anyone know of a support group that can help with codependency? Well, yes, there's CODA, right? Of course. But in the group coaching, specific to codependency and our tendencies, what I love a lot about the group coaching is when we get past the narcissist, when we're like done talking about them and we move on to things like what you're asking here, Missy B, ourselves, our codependency or our people-pleasing natures or our vulnerabilities that make us susceptible to being hooked back in either by the same or another narcissist. The things that help us become Teflon to these people rather than sticky, right? So that we don't let them in. That's the part I like. So yes, the group coaching, check out in the links. It's a weekly group. Right now we're meeting 3 times a week. So there's lots of opportunity to talk. And there's that. So check it out. It's in the main description of every video. You question your decision because of the manipulation, Huffle Mama. You swear they read from the same book. I think it's more like all the ways to manipulate as a child that aren't just because they work, you know, it's because they work. That's why. Chose unhealthy women for years because I was codependent empath. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Went to Al-Anon. Yeah, and that's the thing. Rhonda is saying that why it didn't work for her at Al-Anon. The thing is that I like is the individual with the coaching versus a step program. For some people that works awesome. Go do it if it works, right? So that's the difference where I don't do steps. I just talk to people as they are. And again, if I'm missing something, I am for some reason not scanning real well. I'm just going to go to the end here and see if there's anything you guys are saying and then work my way backwards. Question. You question your choice because of the manipulation. Whether I asked him to help with the wedding stuff, it was always to stop pressuring him. You know, it's like if something is that big of a deal that early on over something that you probably made the right decision. You see what I'm saying? If that tipped the envelope, if that tipped it over to being awful and someone would give an ultimatum, then they probably weren't worth your time. Right? Okay. Anything else, you guys? Did I miss anything? Whoa, here we go. Shar. Hey, Shar. What about so-called self-aware narcissists? Can they change their behavior? Heck no, they're the worst. That's a sociopath or a psychopath. If you're self-aware and you're still manipulating and hurting people, what they would do, okay, here's how they can change. They can stay far away from people. They can keep their toxic ways to themselves, right? No, they're not going to do that. They need the supply. Self-aware narcissist is this like new thing going on where they're all over here, all over social media, and kind of glorifying and glamorizing, in my opinion, their toxic behavior and basically telling you how to suck it up and get a thicker skin. Okay. It's not worth the time. Not worth it. No, I don't think they can change their behavior. Yes, they can change their behavior. No, they can't change their level of empathy. Like I said earlier, they can learn skills. They can learn vocabulary. They can learn language. But does that make it a real relationship with two people empathizing with one another? And is that important to you? If it's not important to you to have someone who has empathy for you, by all means, right? But if it is important to you to have somebody care about you from a place of empathy, you're not going to find it even with the most self-aware narcissist. All right. I had a chance to have a long conversation, about 5 hours, with a very self-aware narcissist. And the entire time, all he wanted was to know my secret for joy. What is your secret? You seem to be able to appreciate things. You seem to be able to, I'm watching you. And when we were on a walk and something real, like that little bird flew by and you were so delighted, how can you do that? Why is that interesting to you? What is it? I want that. That's what I want. I want that. I said, well, go find it for yourself then. It's not, you can't have mine. You know what I mean? Like that's just me. Okay. You can't have that. That's me. He's like, so if I'm around people like you, can I get it? Can I get it through you? And I said, are you aware of how you sound? You know, and he was talking, it was more than that. It was wanting to know, oh, how can you put yourself in the position of somebody else's feelings? I said, I don't. I put myself in the position of me and I allow their feelings in. I allow their feelings to mix with what I experience. I allow them to be themselves. I said, I just let them be themselves. And when they're being themselves, I get a feeling for them, if that makes sense. Like, and he goes, no, it doesn't make sense. When I'm hearing you and you're talking about your feelings, I just think, why would she think that? Why does she feel that? Who cares about that? What I feel is this. I said, so if you can't sympathize, you can't empathize. He goes, I don't think I have empathy. So anyway, I said, has anyone ever said you're a narcissist? And he said, yeah, my ex-wife, she made me go to therapy and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, that makes sense. I said, and how do you feel about that? He goes, well, I'm trying to learn how to like get what I need and still have good relationships. You can't, man. Right? Why don't you just have superficial relationships? Be clear about it. Go find other narcissists and be unhappy together. Anyway, that's my answer there. Long one, but okay. All right. They want who they can't be. Yep. That's right. Let's see. They seek what they want to be, don't they? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They that's why they like different kinds of people. You see, they're collectors of other people's other people's souls, really, right? They're deeper parts of who they are. Okay, I'm going to have to go in just a second because I have something at 1:00. So anything else that I missed, please type it in real quick. I will get to it really fast here. Otherwise, I'm going to head out and see you guys later. Hopefully later today with Angie. I'm not sure, her schedule got very, very busy today. If not, maybe later this week. I am not sure. I haven't talked to her yet. So hopefully. No, I haven't seen the case. This is a lot they want. They can, okay. All right. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna head out. I will see you next time. If you need any information about coaching or group coaching, check it out down below in the main comments of every video. We have all kinds of ways for getting you help if you need it down there. There should be links to the Facebook group as well. That is the peer support group. And if not, I'll get it in there. Let's see. Angie told Helpful Mama 2:30 our times. That's Central. All right. That's Recovery Dharma. I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know. So you think when they are going to therapy and trying with new supply, it's all fake? Oh, heck yeah. Yes, they eat therapy up. I was told by one, I said, why won't you? I said, so you'll go to individual therapy, but you won't go to couples therapy. Is that because you don't want to expose yourself in front of another person and have to work on it? And they said, it's my business. I work things the way I work things. And I know for a fact that they use therapy to gain supply from the therapist. They get pity. They talk about all the bad things that happened to them. They should be able to get those things. But the problem is, it's not going to change their behavior. It's just going to give them validation for what they are and who they are. Does that make sense? All right. Oh, wait. You're Pacific. Okay, 2:30 Pacific. That's right. That's right. You see, my brain is on this, not on numbers. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Huffle Mama. They keep me in check. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would stop listening to, honestly, I would stop listening to these so-called self-aware narcissists, and I would start listening to people who have suffered under them more than them. I think they're out there to gain supply. I think they're out there to be self-proclaimed experts on something that they live, which they are, right? But does that make them experts on helping others move past it? Or do they care? With that said, I'll let you go. Can we be anonymous in support groups? Spanily, you can if you join with an account that isn't your name. So yes. Okay, I'm gonna head out. Talk to you later. Bye.